the first clone of Peter Parker that was at first a villain, but then eventually took up the mantle of Scarlet Spider and became a hero. Who is Kaine Parker? We're about to find out in this video. To start off, Kaine first appeared in Web of Spider-Man issue 119, and he was the first clone of Spider-Man to be created by a villain known as the Jackal. But just like any other science project, there are always going to be some drawbacks before you get the final results you worked so hard for. This is where Kaine comes in, as he came out mentally unstable and deformed, as is shown on his face. On the bright side though, most of his powers and abilities are similar to Peter Parker, but we'll get to that later. At first, Kaine was an enemy of Ben Reilly, who we all know was the first Scarlet Spider and the other clone of Peter Parker, but during that time, Norman Osborn was basically playing mind games and giving out false information, saying that Peter Parker was a clone and Ben Reilly wasn't a clone, and he was a true Peter Parker, technically. But we all know that's not true, and in my opinion, this was crappy storytelling. So in a short story called Spider-Man The Lost Years, Kaine followed Ben Reilly out of New York, and on the way, he met a police detective named Louise Kennedy in Salt Lake City. But Kaine discovered that she was a corrupt detective, and he offed Louise. Then Kaine tried to frame Ben for all the crimes he committed, still believing that Ben wasn't a clone, but Peter was, and he would give Peter a life that he didn't have, or he couldn't have. So when Ben had to go back to New York, Kaine followed him and tried to prevent Ben from coming back into Peter's life. Also during his time, Kaine was established mob hitman, and on top of that, he went on a crime spree, offering anyone that seemed like a potential threat to Mary Jane's life, including Dr. Octopus and Grim Hunter. As his enhanced spider sense at the time kicked in, this attracted the attention of Peter Parker, Ben Reilly, and even the police. Peter took the blame instead, since they shared the exact same DNA and fingerprints. Temporarily, Ben took Peter's place in jail while Peter confronted Kaine, which led Kaine to turn himself in and admit that it was him that did all those crimes. Afterwards, Peter and Ben wanted to know who was really the clone, but yet again the result was altered thanks to Norman Osborn. So Peter lost his temper when the results came out that he was a clone, and he ended up hitting Mary Jane when she tried to stop him from offing Ben. Peter was ashamed for doing it, so he left and joined the Jackal. When Kaine heard about it, he didn't want Peter to throw his life away, so he went after the Jackal. But it didn't go that way, as the Jackal manipulated Kaine into believing his deformity can be cured. When the Jackal revealed he lied, Kaine left feeling shunned and had to talk with Mary Jane about power and responsibility. This resulted in Kaine being motivated to help Ben fight off numerous Spider-Man clones created by the Jackal. He would sacrifice himself in the battle. Of course, this is comics, so the Jackal put Kaine's body in a regeneration pod, and the next time we see the pod, it's shown that it's empty. This is because the character named James Johnsmeyer, I hope I pronounced that right, but anyways, he was also a sponsor for a fighting tournament called The Great Game, and when he found a pod containing Kaine, he forced him to join the tournament. I admit this story felt more like a filler episode of an anime to me, as the characters in here aren't actually relevant at all during this time, but this story did show how strong Kaine is, as he was able to have an easier time taking on the Rhino, and he gave him a grade A ass whooping. Time passed and Kaine finally acknowledged that Ben was his brother, and he turned himself in yet again, but it didn't last long, as he escaped and tried to stop Norman Osborn when he figured out that he was behind the constant manipulation of the Clone Saga. During the Dark Reign storyline, Kaine was focused on finding a cure for his deformity and was convinced by a villain named Raptor that he can cure Kaine's deformity. So on the way, he prevented Peter from getting to Raptor, but it resulted in another lie on Raptor's side, as he wanted an ally in his quest for revenge on Spider-Man, which was a big mistake, as the angry Kaine snapped his neck. Moving on to the Grim Hunt storyline, Kaine was attacked by Anna and Alosha Kravinoff, who are the children of Kraven the Hunter. Kaine was hurt so bad he quickly headed to Peter's apartment, where Peter hit him. While Peter was out, Kaine shaved his face to look like Peter, and he sacrificed his life once again in Peter's Spider-Man suit. I mean, this led up to one of the most badass moments Peter did, since as soon as he found Kaine's body and then he went to save Madam Web and the rest of the Spider-Women from Kraven's family, he encountered Sasha Kravinoff, who was Kraven's wife, and then he put his fingertips onto her face and said, "By the way, my brother wanted to give you this," and ripped part of her face off with his spider powers, resembling the mark of Kaine. That's one of the few moments to show why people should have messed with Spider-Man. Alright, back to Kaine. Just want to mention that. So Kaine eventually resurrected as a tarantula monster with a Jackal at his side. During the Spider Island event, Kaine was under the control of the Jackal and attacked Spider-Man while he was still a tarantula monster. Midway through the fight, Spider-Man threw Kaine into a tank filled with the antidote to cure the people of Spider Island. Come to find out, as soon as he came out of the tank, he reverted back into his human form, plus his deformity was cured too. Peter pointed out that Kaine looks exactly like him. Kaine quickly helped Spider-Man and the rest of the Avengers to defeat the main threat of the Spider Island event, named the Spider Queen. After everything settled, Kaine relocated and moved down to Texas as the new Scarlet Spider, since he was convinced to stay after saving a young girl and was cheered on as a hero. And during the time before that comic series got canceled, he set up a pretty good reputation for himself, as he battled Carnage alongside Venom and gained some new abilities by accepting a being called the Other, unlike Peter did. He also went up against Kraven the Hunter and joined a team called the New Warriors. This didn't last long as the first Spider-Verse event happened and he was offed by the Inheritors, but at least he offed the most powerful Inheritor named Solus and came back to life anyway by emerging from the corpse of his other form. Moving on to the Clone Conspiracy storyline, Kaine's deformity returned as it's revealed that the other's possession was keeping it under control, but without it, Kaine's deformity will continue to deteriorate his body. At first he thought he was the carrier of a virus called the Carrion virus, as his body looked like it was affected by it, so he went to various worlds affected by the virus, investigating it and searching for a cure. Along the way, he met up with Spider-Gwen and went to a world where an alternate version of Peter and Miles Warren, aka the Jackal, was working on a cure for the virus. Unfortunately, they didn't make it, so Kaine took whatever research they had and left that Earth. Then, out of nowhere, an alternate version of Kaine fought our Kaine, and after the fight, our Kaine figured out that he wasn't infected with the virus after all, as his counterpart died and his body was examined. Right after that, both Spider-Gwen and Kaine traveled back to the 616 Earth right before a new plague of the Carrion virus was going to begin and infiltrate a company called New U Technologies. Throughout the arc, the Jackal was back and was cloning people who had already died, including Gwen Stacy and Captain Stacy. Come to find out, it turns out that Ben Reilly came back to life and was the Jackal. At this point, with the help of Spider-Man and a few others, the Carrion virus was stopped and Kaine was determined to hunt down Ben Reilly all the way to Las Vegas. And when he found Ben, they fought, and to put some dirt in your eye, Mephisto appeared once again, possessed Kaine and manipulated his memories, forcing him to off Ben, as Ben went back on a deal he made with him. So as Kaine's memories returned after he offed Ben, he felt great guilt. Then, when Ben came back to life, he came back as a villain more than a hero, and then he stabbed Kaine multiple times. Now, side note, let me just say that when I was looking back at this story, it amazed me on how much Ben is disrespected, plus with the Mephisto thing. I really hope there will be a story arc eventually when the whole Spider family faces him, because at this point, he made a deal with damn near every Spider-like character, including Miles Morales. I just can't with the Mephisto thing anymore. He's even reverted Superior Spider-Man back to regular Dr. Octopus, resulted in all that character development going to waste. Anyways, just had to get that off my chest. So in result of that storyline, Kaine left Vegas after he was threatened by Ben. As far as the rest of the Spider-Verse events, such as Spider-Geddon and the Spider-Verse, Kaine had a relatively small role in them, especially for End of Spider-Verse, since he just came back for the ending of End of Spider-Verse. And now that you guys and girls are all caught up with Kaine, we're gonna move on to his powers and abilities. Like Peter Parker and Ben Reilly, has super strength and enhanced agility, stamina, reflexes, and he can wall crawl. Now for the differences, he has a limited healing factor that are levels below Wolverine and Hulk's healing factor, but it's still a healing factor, so that still counts. He has the mark of Kaine that leaves a burn on people through skin-on-skin contact. And the final difference is that he got organic webbing. When he had the abilities from the other, he had retractable stingers on his forearms, he had night vision, and he had a psychic connection with spiders, but he can't communicate directly or give out commands to spiders. As far as nerd facts, he's actually stronger than both Ben Reilly and Peter and can hold his own against both of them at the same time. Also, as I mentioned before, he was able to have an easier time taking down the Rhino. Plus, he was also able to knock out Wolverine. As far as the Scarlet Spider suit, it was originally Peter Parker's old stealth suit when he borrowed it during the Spider Island event, but Madam Web wanted him to keep it and she modified the suit herself to look red. It's actually why he was called the Scarlet Spider, and Kaine tried to change the suit back to black, but the suit's red look is permanent. As far as my personal thoughts on Kaine, I actually like Kaine more than Ben Reilly. He's like Spider-Man with the mindset and morals of Wolverine that makes the character so unique within the Spider family. Also, as I was doing my research, there's going to be a storyline coming out in the summer called Chasm Curse of Kaine, where I hope Kaine can bring Ben Reilly back from the dark side into a hero, since the character has been so demolished in the recent years. And if some of you didn't know, Ben had his memories altered and turned into Chasm in the first place during the time he had a feeling for Peter as Spider-Man, but that's a different story. That's a totally different story. If you want to read it, I'm not reading that because I just think it's garbage and it didn't do Ben Reilly justice. Besides all that, if you stuck for this long, I appreciate you guys and girls for sticking this long in the video. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications, especially if you're a new viewer. If you want to show even more support, my links will be down in the description box below. And I'll see you guys and girls later. Peace.